When the stakes are high, we play the game. In a guy realty, we don't just play the game, we play to win.
My name is Leslie Thomas, and I just got to build on something real.
Yes, this is Casey Townsend, and I'm here with Miss Leslie Thomas. Miss Thomas, as we were talking about before, I've heard so many great things about you, even from like a prior interview before. A lot of people just kept saying, "You've got to get Miss Thomas. You got to get Miss Thomas and schedule an interview for with her." So, without further ado, we're going to hop into the interview. And my first question for you is, what drew you to KSU, and what made you decide to serve the campus community in such a dedicated way?
Well, I walked on K-State's campus July 1st, 1988. I applied for the Director of Student Life position and was hired. And the minute I walked on campus, I knew it was a special place. There was just so much love and so much history and so much culture, and I just felt like it was my purpose to be there. So I was there over 26 years, and my first impressions were the right impressions.
26 years, that's a long time. You were like a walking book of knowledge there. So let me ask you another question. You've often been described as a servant leader. What does servant leadership mean to you, and how did you embody that in your work with your students?
I think servant leadership is all about giving back and giving of yourself. What I loved, my favorite part of being at Kentucky State were the students, obviously. I mean, to me, as long as you kept the students first, meet the students where they are, then you can't go wrong in anything that you do. Any position you're in, from the president to the custodian, as long as you focus on the students and what's best for the students, you can't go wrong. My big thing was meeting students where they are. I would be in the cafeteria with them. I would be in the dorm with them. I would be at the parties with them. Those relationships, when you develop them one-on-one with the students, it filters all across campus. When I would walk across campus, if somebody was cursing and they saw me, their peers were correcting them. You don't do that. If I was walking across campus and somebody's pants were sagging, I didn't have to say a word. They just pulled them up. But those relationships, when somebody was getting ready to have, a disagreement or anything, they didn't want to disappoint me, because they knew that I was going to have them in there on the next business day or even that night, and we were going to be talking about everything, problem solving. They always knew it was academics first. I can think of one group of young men, it was about 6 to 8 of them, and everybody looked at them, because they like to party and they like to have fun, but they were 4.0 students. So I would always say they're handling their business in the classroom before they go play. So I just feel like being a servant is leading with love and guiding them through their lives and through their choices.
I appreciate that, Ms. Thomas. So, I mean, like in your specific role, it required a lot of time on campus and interaction with the students. So I guess my next question is, how did you balance being an administrator or within your role as a director of campus life? How did you balance that time being in your role while also being a mentor and a supporter to so many students?
Well, you always, the administrative side of things, there's policies, there's procedures, there's the basic rules of the campus that you have to abide by, that your supervisor tells you have to abide by. But then on the mentorship side, you still put the students first, and you make sure they know the rules. I mean, at that time we had a KSU handbook, so we would when they would want to create new things or start new things or even protest or have disagreements, we would always use that as a guide so that they would know the right way to go about it and be more effective as leaders. That's why we work so closely with student government, with all the Greeks, with all, the other organizations on campus to help them be the best leaders and set the example by being a leader ourselves.
Understood. So with that being said, can you share a time when you had to advocate for students in a way that made a lasting impact on campus life?
I think we advocated a lot for students. One big thing is when we were renovating the student center and the student government wanted their own space, and at first it wasn't going to happen, but because they worked professionally with the administration and we all talked through it and the pros and the cons and the benefits of that space, it turned out, and they had one of the best spaces of a student government association across the state and probably beyond. I mean, they had all individual offices, and it was just a great place for them to learn and grow and lead them as they go on to other jobs.
Okay. And so with many of the students you saw more than once, I'm sure of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially in your administrative role, they saw you as a family member too. How did you create that sense of belonging for the students who might have been away from home? I know for me, like when I was at A&T, that was like my first long time of being away from home, even though I was an hour away. But how did you give them that sense of belonging?
I love them, and I think they know that I love them. I was always there for them. They had my number. If they needed me nights, weekends, holidays, it didn't matter. Doing things like baking brownies and bringing them to campus. We would do student life potlucks, and that would be a family event because it wasn't just for student life. Everybody, knew student life was having the potluck, so everybody would come in. Just hanging out with them when if I thought they were going in the wrong direction, tugging them. I've had students confide in me at things they were doing that was not good. And we would talk through it, and I was there to support them. I've gone to court with students. I've been at the hospital with students, there for births and there for deaths and celebrations and gender reveals and all those kinds of things. Being at Kentucky State is not about going into the office and leaving. I've had family members say that I was there for them more than my own blood sometimes, and incorporating my family there. My daughter has so many big brothers and big sisters, and my husband's called, they're part of the family too. When I taught university orientation for freshmen, so we would go beyond the scope of what was on the curriculum, because we would talk about relationship issues and how important it is if you're being sexually active and being protected, and what it means to be in a relationship beyond the bedroom. If you don't like somebody to where you can ride 12 hours in a car with them to Florida for vacation, then you're going to have some problems. But we talked about everything, and I would bring in upper class students and talk to them. And then at the end of the semester, I would personally cook a whole Thanksgiving meal for them, with turkey and ham and all the sides. And they're like, "Miss Thomas, how'd you learn soul food cooking?" And I said, "Well, soul food and country cooking's a lot alike." Right. So just doing those extra things that not everybody does. So, and staying consistent. I feel like the students, if they saw me today and they saw me on Friday, it's the same person. It's not like I put on a face today, but I'm going to be nice to you today and not. I just tried to always be me, and the love was sincere, and I just think they felt it and they knew it.
That's how you. That's why people remember you, right? It's kind of like the thing of where they say, or people say, it's not about what you do, is how you do it. Mm-hmm. And so that's why they definitely built that relationship and still remember you. 20 years later, 10 years later. So that's amazing. And
you don't realize the influence you have on them. I've had so many students say they wouldn't have made it without my influence. And I mean, I know, we built the relationships and carried it through and beyond. That's what I think is a true testament is on Mother's Day, I get hundreds of messages from them. That shows how they know I love them and that I still love them. Homecoming, I can't wait, because I get to see them and hug on them. And I know a lot of people are down on social media, but I love the connection because I get to see, when the babies are born and when the marriages and the job promotions and the health issues and the losses, and you just get to, be there for all of that. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop at graduation. Graduation is the ultimate goal.
Right.
The ultimate goal. And those days of seeing them walk across that stage, was just so much pride and so much joy.
So what were some of the most rewarding moments you experienced watching students grow and succeed during your time at KSU?
Seeing the ones that thought they were going to fail succeed. Seeing the ones that were, we had the ones that came in a 4.0 and they graduated 4.0, but even with that, they've got to get outside of just the academics because they need to grow and get involved in all the programming we were doing that dealt with leadership and relationships. And we had men's conferences and women's conferences where they got to get hands-on experiences with famous people and learn and grow. And I had students with some of the speakers, they stayed in touch. It helped them with careers outside of Kentucky State, where they made those connections. Just seeing their successes, they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're dancers, they're teachers, they're actors, they're singers, just, they're realtors, they're just amazing. And I just love seeing all of that.
So if some of your former students were sitting here today, what do you think they would say about the influence that you had on their life?
That's a hard one. It's a hard one to say about myself. I do know while I was there, they had the Favorite Faculty Staff Award. That I won that every year that I was there. The students gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award, which is one of my most proudest honors on campus. I think they would say I cared, I was consistent, I fought for them. I think I was good at my job with all the programming that we did and, keeping the organizations on track, supporting the organizations, throughout the goals that they wanted to achieve, supporting students that come in with just a random idea. And if we can make it happen, we would do it. So I know Dance Extravaganza, that was a student idea, and we supported her, and it went on for years. I love still seeing some of the events we had when I was there continue, like the Welcome Week Extravaganza, the women's, the men's, leadership, just a variety of other things.
Well, another question that my colleague has is, what do you think happened to the culture at KSU, right? Like, what do you think happened to that?
You mean how is it different now?
Yeah, like versus, since I moved to Frankfort in 2021, I hear that a lot. The culture here has changed. And so some of my coworkers graduated from there in 93. Major, you graduated from there when at 14. And I hear that so much in 2025 that the culture has changed. So
that's a hard one. I definitely see it has changed. It has changed. And I'll have alumni call me and say, the students don't have what we had. It's just not the same. It's not there. You've had administration changes. I don't know where student life or student affairs fits in their goals, for the campus and their where they want to see things go. I know budgetarily, I think things have changed. I remember when my first couple weeks there, the president called me in the office because when I got there, student life had no budget. They had no budget. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with this? Well, the president called me over and he said, I'm going to give you $25,000. I want you to show me what you got. So when April came around for budgets, he doubled that. And then, of course, it increased as time went on. The things that we took students to New Orleans for 5 years to do service during spring break. And that, I think, was a huge impact on their lives. We made a difference in New Orleans. We're still in touch with some of them. We've done service in Kentucky. They're doing great things, but I don't see, it is different. It is a lot different.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to blame it on.
I don't think it was the budget. We had family at that time. Everything was close-knit. I mean, you know that.
Yes, it was a family, and there were several people that worked on campus that cared about the students. For today's highlight, we're going to highlight Kentucky State University, the most amazing university in the state and beyond. We have amazing students, amazing staff, amazing faculty and administration. We're doing lots of great things in the community and throughout the state and throughout the world. Now back to the interview. I don't know that many people that are there now. Of course, everybody knows Mama Longstreet, and that's a connection that they still have. They still have Travis Haskins, who worked for me, and I'm proud to say that. I did have a lot of amazing staff that worked with me that helped create the culture, the history, just so much in-depth and deep connections that we had then, I don't think are there.
No, that makes sense. I mean, even like with my experience at A&T, I think about some of the professors I had in undergrad that aren't necessarily there anymore. But I mean, like I tell Major all the time too, universities still have to transition with the times too.
Right.
And I think that's what I think is happening, right? I look at Winston-Salem State University. They used to have about 1,500 students back in the day. And to put it in perspective, I graduated in 2007 in undergrad.
Yeah.
And even at A&T, the enrollment was dropping back then in 2007. Yeah. But when I look at it now, they had to pivot to increase the enrollment. And Winston-Salem State, has about 5,000 students. A&T has almost 15,000 students.
Wow.
But when I was there, it was like 7,000 students. Even in 2012, when I did my master's degree. So I think you're going to see a strong comeback from K-State.
I think we will. I mean, I think they've got some great things going on, that we all see. I love Kentucky State, and I will never give up on Kentucky State, and I will defend Kentucky State until, the day I die. It's a special place. It has such rich heritage and diversity and traditions that we have to keep going.
Yeah.
The students are the key.
Right.
You know what I mean? You support them, you build them up, and share them with the world. But like I said, K-State's doing a lot of good things. We just, I think the pandemic had an effect on everybody, every university.
You're right.
So we're technically still rebuilding from that. But I do think we could use more. There's some people that, Erica. There's some people still there that are really great examples, and I think still carrying on what we did when I was there.
Making people feel at home.
Yeah.
Making them, transition to the campus. That matters. That matters with how you make people feel, right?
Right. And the ones that I'm thinking of, I see them. They're at the games. They're at the events. They're out with the students, and you've got to be with them outside the classroom.
For sure.
You've got to be with them outside the classroom.
Eating meals with them in the cab.
Yes.
Like you were saying. Planning community, campus events.
Right. And if they're having a cleanup day, go clean up with them.
Right.
Go pick up trash next to them. That means a lot, and they know, that they can that builds trust
Right.
and builds another layer of your relationship with that student.
No, I agree with you. Even earlier when you were saying that it's more to it than just going to work and going home.
Right.
I think the students can recognize that too.
Right.
And I think that's like the pivotal moment for you where everybody remembers you because they saw you outside of that scope of 8 to 4:30 or 8
Right.
to 5.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, students has always been about more than just activities. It is about culture, identity, and growth. How did you shape programming to reflect that?
That was always at the center of everything. And I'm so proud that we took them on a Black History tour. We went to the 16th Street Baptist Church. I mean, it was like days. We took them to all these historical locations. And it just, when they go in and we've got, we're supposed to load the bus and they don't want to leave, that to me just speaks volumes, and we didn't leave. We let them take as long as they wanted. We always, we would try to do as much as we can during Black History Month, but it's not just a month.
Right.
I mean, it was always, it's just the way it is, that, and it just builds everything, the importance level, the depth of it, keeping them informed and educated and growing throughout the process. K-State's traditions and hopefully will always be there. The things that we did. I know at one time I was in a budget meeting and we were having to make cuts, and I said, well, we know coronation's always going to be here, so that's not why that wasn't considered. And the person said to me, why do you think coronation's always going to be here? So it kind of took me aback, and I was like, because it's been here since 1929 and it will always be here. That's part of our tradition and part of our culture, and it is still there and it will always be there.
So speaking of that, what do you think some of the biggest challenges were in fostering and engaging the campus environment, and how did you overcome them?
I think being prepared for any obstacles, and when you're sincere and you know your stuff and you know the policies and you know the procedures, then it's easy to speak your truth in meetings and in, when you're having to fight for those monies for different events, and you've got your documentation, you can show the attendance levels and the influence, and you have quotes from students on how it impacted their lives and how it helped them, through their college career. So I think it's just let your work and let your actions and statistics speak for themselves.
No, I agree with you there. I even think about, really throughout my career, right? It was always data driven. People always wanted to see data to make decisions, right? And how we impact. So that makes sense.
And we had to do assessments for every event and everything. So, but we usually had a pretty good amount of the assessments to back us up.
That makes sense. CYA.
Right, you got it.
So KSU, of course, is an HBCU, which has a rich legacy that we were talking about. How did that history and tradition influence your vision for student life?
People just don't, unless you live it and are a part of it, you just don't realize how special being at an HBCU is. From when I very first started, my first homecoming, so a typical PWI homecoming, typical, not all, is a football game and some tailgating and everybody goes home. So I'm at Kentucky State at the game, the first homecoming game, my first homecoming game, and I just was in awe of the love you could feel, the alumni coming back, the older alumni. It was cold that year, so all these mink coats and everybody's got their fit on, and they're just everybody's so happy, and they were just meeting me, most of them, and they were just as friendly and welcoming as they could be. And from that day, I knew there's something extremely special about this place. And I've just always felt comfortable there. And, you know, I've even, like, the maintenance guys were like, nobody has ever treated us like you know, you treat us kind and like we matter. I said, you do matter. I mean, we would have dinners for them because we worked them to death. I mean, our events had to be set up, cleaned up, you know, and they, I would drive them crazy, you know, because I needed it this way and that way, but it had to be perfect for when the student event happened. It had to represent, and it had to make this, especially during homecoming, it had to make them feel, especially like Mr. and Miss KSU, and they had to feel like it was just like everything they dreamed of. And, you know, one maintenance guy would say, okay, are you going to have them coming from the ceiling this year? What are you doing? I said, well, it depends on the king and the queen. We might. So anyway, it's just, they're being at an HBCU, it's across the board, because if you look at the other HBCUs, you can tell they're just as special, and they will fight for their university.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, can you explain what a PWI is for those who may not know?
That is a predominantly white institution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you for that. Now, when you reflect on your years of service, what legacy do you hope that you left at KSU?
Well, I mean, as on the work side, just that we made a difference, that we enhanced the learning in the classroom, that we provided opportunities for them to learn and grow outside the classroom, that we helped teach them what it means to be in an organization, what it means to hold an office in an organization. You know, how do you lead your organization and guide? You still have to follow the rules, and just educate them on that area. But on a personal side, just that I came, I loved, and I still love them, and I was there for them for whatever they needed that I could provide, and that I'm still there for them.
Appreciate that.
I still think it like reflects. Like I said, I was on the phone with Brady Bob and Sheldon. That was a police officer at the time, and that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And they were all like, "You're interviewing her."
Oh.
I mean, that speaks by itself.
Yeah.
Bob said he never would have opened up for concerts if it wasn't for you and Ron.
Yeah. He would come, and you know, and I think this says a lot too. In all my time at K-State, one student ever, you know, was cross with me. One. And I just think that speaks a lot. And Brady and I would be in there, now Brady, you can do this, but you can't do that. And he would be like, come on, Miss Thomas. I said, well, look, if we're going to work it, we're going to have to go this route. But he was amazing, and look at him now.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love it. He's succeeding, and he's amazing. I'm just happy I knew them when. You know, now you got Angela Burchett on the big screen, and I mean, there's so many.
Jermaine.
Yeah.
God, so many. Rise Hendricks.
Yes. All of them.
So many people.
And then, you know, the only downside is losing them, losing students, and it's just crushing because they're family, and it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's what comes to my mind, that I never really understood until I started working on the campus. So when I went to A&T, it felt like a community in its own way, but it was still a large campus.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm at KSU, even though it's a little bit smaller, it feels more family oriented. It
Yeah.
really does. And I'm not saying I didn't get that at A&T, but you know, you have people who commuted, a lot of students who might have been, what's the word? Commuting the campus, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Commuting students.
Right.
But at KSU, it seems like everybody knows everybody, and the trajectory or the legacy kind of continues. It's like, you know, such and such. Yeah, I know such and such.
And you have Gil. I mean, you should interview Gil, because
Yeah.
Gil was a student. He was one of my first students in Kappa, and now, you know, look at him working there and doing big things out in the community.
For sure, for sure.
I don't think there'll ever be another Gil. You got the salons, and you got the riches and the banks. And, you know, I can go on and on about people, but I mean, that community. I tell him all the time, like, I had the greatest time while I was there. It wasn't until I got out that I started seeing all the problems and stuff. And it was all like, maybe we were sheltered.
And that's the way, I mean, really that's the way it should be, because the students don't need to be involved in the, you know, in that side of it while you're there. You need to be focused on the good stuff.
I never seen any problems while I was there.
Right.
But he's all like, man, it's all kind of, you know, I'm all like.
Right.
But yeah, you shouldn't experience that. You got to focus, because I mean, the whole point of a university, even working for housing and residence life, is retention, right? So, what's the point of you knowing about that when, like, they don't need to hear about that,
right?
But yeah, to close the interview, my last question for you is, what advice would you give the next generation of student leaders who are stepping into roles on campus today? What kind of advice would you give them?
To be involved. Don't just go to class and go to your room. Get out, go in the student center, meet who's in student life, meet who's in student affairs, get to know your professors. Speaking of professors, you need to interview Dr. Finley Helm.
Will do.
Definitely. He would have them up at 7 in the morning on Saturday, tutoring them. And, you know, they love him for that. You know, he would lock the door if they weren't there on time. You know, all those things. But anyway, be involved, get to know your professors, use your voice. If there's something you see that you don't agree with or you want to see improved, then go to your student leaders. That's what they're there for, to take your issues, the good and the bad, to the administration to try to make changes. So get your classes first. That's why you're here. And just get involved so you can learn and grow as a person. Get involved in service, get involved in organizations, and just continue to fight and love KSU.
So I do have a question about Finley Helm, or Professor Finley Helm. What was his role?
He was, you know, he was the math teacher, and he actually, and he's been retired, but he was supposed to come back in the spring and teach a class. So that's just amazing, because we saw him at homecoming last year. But he didn't take any stuff. I mean, he was one of those professors, but they loved and appreciated him because they knew he cared about them and he wanted what's best for them. And he would call them and say, you know, you missed my class. And I think, I personally think all teachers should do that. You know, even though I taught freshman orientation, if they missed, I was following up. You know, where are you? What's going on with you? And you know, to get them in there. And I even had students bring visitors to the class because they wanted to sit through the class. So, you know, that spoke volumes too. So.
And I think that is that tradition, right?
Yeah.
When I walk around, I didn't see it at first when I came, but the other day when I went on campus, and maybe in the past couple of years, that I've been on campus, it reminds me of a different world. Y'all ever watch that?
Yes.
Like you can just kind of see it though, you know, like everybody knows one another, everybody is hanging out, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
And that's what it's about. That's the HBCU experience.
Yeah, that's like the tradition.
Yeah.
That's the rich culture of it, and I think it's kind of hard to see it or experience it when a professor first comes there, because they're learning their role too, right? Like if they haven't been there for nothing but a year or less than a year, it's going to be hard to get that feel starting out. It takes time to build it up.
It takes a little time. If they come in class, I mean, of course they need to know their stuff in the classroom, but students know. Students know.
Like whether they want to be there or not.
Yeah.
With any institution.
Right.
Even in the work environment, right? Your co-workers, they're like, well, they act like they don't want to be here.
Right.
And so I think that could happen
They
everywhere.
know.
But thank you so much.
You're
Ms.
so
Thomas.
welcome.
This is an amazing interview. I'm sure I probably left out a ton of questions.
That's
too,
okay.
But look forward to connecting with you on another time. If we can do another interview, that would be great too.
All right. Sounds good.
But thank you.
One more thing before you go. Who you with?
K-State.